Siono Kimbaloi on Mike On Podcast.
I'm sure Kimbaloi.
On Twitter Spaces, Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and Instagram Live at the Mike On Podcast.
There's a young girl that was trending over the fact that she's talking about how men will give her 20 million naira and how men go into her DM, and she's very proud of saying it. And those who come to comment about it, she went after them and all what have you. What is our society turning into? The kind of standards some of these young people are setting that is going to burn our nation, I'm afraid.
The question I ask when I see people make those kind of statements that if a guy doesn't have 25 million, I'm not going to date him. How much do you have as a lady, right? And how much do your parents have really? But the bigger question is, who are the parents of that girl? How do you say that in Lagos, you cannot date a guy on the mainland? You know, if you are not on the island, I cannot date you. Who are you to say you can't date someone on the mainland? Do you know the people? Do you even know that in Lagos, the real old money lives on the mainland? You know, so when someone makes those kind of statements, I look at the person and look how shallow and how empty you are, because to open your mouth, go on a global platform, and all you have to say is that you can't date some kind of... So your parameters for success is very faulty, right? And so I can't even listen to that kind of person. But because, again, I said, loud and bold is the new right. We're in the era of post-truth. And in post-truth era, what is loud and what is bold is what is classified. And I'm singing a song as my national anthem written by a foreigner who doesn't understand my Nigerian reality, who doesn't understand the fact that I have to sell gala, that I have to run after bosses, that I have to do all those things, you know. And that's why I always say to people, when you hear "Arise, O compatriots," you know exactly what it means. Nigeria's call base, your nation calling you. You know, maybe we could have even tweaked that if we needed to add a few things by Nigerians. And that's one of the things I had a problem with, the fact that I'm singing a song written by a foreigner. I don't know which other nation on the planet, you know, has got a national anthem. It's called a national anthem. Except you're going to tell me that the authors are Nigerians. Because at the end of the day, we're saying, buy Nigeria. Buy Nigeria. Doctors should not japa. Everybody stay in Nigeria. Build Nigeria. But then the first thing we have to do is to get back to a national anthem that was written by, foreigners. I wouldn't get it. But like I said, I'm a law-abiding citizen. I'll defer to my leaders. And I think I'll learn the song and continue to sing.
Why do you think more Nigerians want to leave Nigeria?
A lot of our people, are looking for a place that gives expression to their power, to their ability, right? And that can reward them handsomely without having to bow down to one man, no one man, do this and do that. They are looking for an environment. And I think if we can create an ideal environment where the potential of everyone can find expression, people will stay back. And I always say to people, you see, I live in the US, but I miss Nigeria. In fact, initially when I was going, I felt, I wouldn't miss Nigeria. But, with everything we talk about, coming back home, you still miss Nigeria because there is no place like having your people around you. But then I keep asking, what exactly does it cost us to create that environment where, take power, for example, make power available, make it affordable for people. Internet, if you create internet, there are free Wi-Fi's where I live. If you make internet available for our people, the young Nigerian man is so creative, he can do a lot. And if you create the enabling environment where you don't necessarily have to kill their creativity, kill their venture, someone starts something, then you go and tear it down, without even, hearing them out or being empathetic with what they've done, and that's why a lot of people, some people have given up. But I don't believe we need to give up. But at the same time, we always have to understand that human beings will go where they find succor, where they find safety, and where the potential can find expression. And we also have to know that majority of our leaders, their children find expression in the diaspora. They study there, they do their medicals there, they live there, and so I don't think we have a right to tell others not to gravitate to where we have secured our children.
This has been the focus of our conversation on this podcast today.
Joining the conversation is so easy with Shayono
You have the
Kimbaloi
mic.
on Mike On Podcast.
I'm Sean Kimbaloi.
On Twitter Spaces, Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and Instagram Live at the Mike On Podcast.
This has been the focus of our conversation on this podcast today.
Joining the conversation is so easy with Shayono
You have the
Kimbaloi
mic.
on Mike On Podcast.
I'm Sean Kimbaloi.
On Twitter Spaces, Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and Instagram Live at the Mike On Podcast.
There's a young girl that was trending over the fact that she's talking about how men will give her 20 million naira and how men go into her DM, and she's very proud of saying it. And those who come to comment about it, she went after them and all what have you. What is our society turning into? The kind of standards some of these young people are setting that is going to burn our nation, I'm afraid.
The question I ask when I see people make those kind of statements that if a guy doesn't have 25 million, I'm not going to date him. How much do you have as a lady, right? And how much do your parents have really? But the bigger question is, who are the parents of that girl? How do you say that in Lagos, you cannot date a guy on the mainland? You know, if you are not on the island, I cannot date you. Who are you to say you can't date someone on the mainland? Do you know the people? Do you even know that in Lagos, the real old money lives on the mainland? You know, so when someone makes those kind of statements, I look at the person and look how shallow and how empty you are, because to open your mouth, go on a global platform, and all you have to say is that you can't date some kind of... So your parameters for success is very faulty, right? And so I can't even listen to that kind of person. But because, again, I said, loud and bold is the new right. We're in the era of post-truth. And in post-truth era, what is loud and what is bold is what is classified. And I'm singing a song as my national anthem written by a foreigner who doesn't understand my Nigerian reality, who doesn't understand the fact that I have to sell gala, that I have to run after bosses, that I have to do all those things, you know. And that's why I always say to people, when you hear "Arise, O compatriots," you know exactly what it means. Nigeria's call base, your nation calling you. You know, maybe we could have even tweaked that if we needed to add a few things by Nigerians. And that's one of the things I had a problem with, the fact that I'm singing a song written by a foreigner. I don't know which other nation on the planet, you know, has got a national anthem. It's called a national anthem. Except you're going to tell me that the authors are Nigerians. Because at the end of the day, we're saying buy Nigeria. Buy Nigeria. Doctors should not japa. Everybody stay in Nigeria. Build Nigeria. But then the first thing we have to do is to get back to a national anthem that was written by, foreigners. I wouldn't get it, but like I said, I'm a law-abiding citizen. I'll defer to my leaders, and I think I'll learn the song and continue to sing.
Why do you think more Nigerians want to leave Nigeria?
A lot of our people, are looking for a place that gives expression to their power, to their ability, right? And that can reward them handsomely without having to bow down to one man, one man, do this and do that. They are looking for an environment. And I think if we can create an ideal environment where the potential of everyone can find expression, people will stay back. And I always say to people, you see, I live in the US, but I miss Nigeria. In fact, initially when I was going, I felt, I wouldn't miss Nigeria. But, with everything we talk about, coming back home, you still miss Nigeria because there is no place like having your people around you. But then I keep asking, what exactly does it cost us to create that environment where, take power, for example, make power available, make it affordable for people. Internet, if you create internet, there are free Wi-Fi's where I live. If you make internet available for our people, the young Nigerian man is so creative, he can do a lot. And if you create the enabling environment where you don't necessarily have to kill their creativity, kill their venture, someone starts something, then you go and tear it down, without even, hearing them out or being empathetic with what they've done, and that's why a lot of people, some people have given up. But I don't believe we need to give up. But at the same time, we always have to understand that human beings will go where they find succor, where they find safety, and where the potential can find expression. And we also have to know that majority of our leaders, their children find expression in the diaspora. They study there, they do their medicals there, they live there, and so I don't think we have a right to tell others not to gravitate to where we have secured our children.
This has been the focus of our conversation on this podcast today.
Joining the conversation is so easy with Sheono
You have the
Kimbaloy
mic.
on Mike On Podcast.
I'm sure Kimberly.
On Twitter Spaces, Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and Instagram Live at the Mike On Podcast.
This has been the focus of our conversation on this podcast today.
Joining the conversation is so easy with Sheono
You have the
Kimbaloy
mic.
on Mike On Podcast.
I'm sure Kimberly.
On Twitter Spaces, Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and Instagram Live at the Mike On Podcast.
There's a young girl that was trending and trending over the fact that she's talking about how men will give her 20 million naira and how men go into her DM, and she's very proud of saying it, and those who come to comment about it, she went after them and all what have you. What is our society turning into? The kind of standards some of these young people are setting that is going to burn our nation, I'm afraid.
The question I ask when I see people make those kind of statements that if a guy doesn't have 25 million, I'm not going to date him. How much do you have as a lady, right? And how much do your parents have really? But the bigger question is, who are the parents of that girl? How do you say that in Lagos, you cannot date a guy on the mainland? You know, if you are not on the island, I cannot date you. Who are you to say you can't date someone on the mainland? Do you know the people, do you even know that in Lagos, the real old money lives on the mainland? You know, so when someone makes those kind of statements, I look at the person and look how shallow and how empty you are, because to open your mouth, go on a global platform, and all you have to say is that you can't date some kind of... So your parameters for success is very faulty, right? And so I can't even listen to that kind of person. But because, again, I said, loud and bold is the new right. We're in the era of post-truth. And in post-truth era, what is loud and what is bold is what is classified. And I'm singing a song as my national anthem written by a foreigner who doesn't understand my Nigerian reality, who doesn't understand the fact that I have to sell gala, that I have to run after bosses, that I have to do all those things, you know. And that's why I always say to people, when you hear "Arise, O compatriots," you know exactly what it means. Nigeria's call base, your nation calling you. You know, maybe we could have even tweaked that if we needed to add a few things by Nigerians. And that's one of the things I had a problem with, the fact that I'm singing a song written by a foreigner. I don't know which other nation on the planet, you know, has got a national anthem. It's called a national anthem. Except you're going to tell me that the authors are Nigerians. Because at the end of the day, we're saying buy Nigeria. Buy Nigeria. Doctors should not japa. Everybody stay in Nigeria. Build Nigeria. But then the first thing we have to do is to get back to a national anthem that was written by, foreigners. I wouldn't get it, but like I said, I'm a law-abiding citizen. I'll defer to my leaders, and I think I'll learn the song and continue to sing.
Why do you think more Nigerians want to leave Nigeria?
A lot of our people, you know, are looking for a place that gives expression to their power, to their ability, right? And that can reward them handsomely without having to bow down to one man, no one man, do this and do that. You know, they are looking for an environment. And I think if we can create an ideal environment where the potential of everyone can find expression, people will stay back. And I always say to people, you see, I live in the US, but I miss Nigeria. You know, in fact, initially when I was going, I felt, I wouldn't miss Nigeria. But, you know, with everything we talk about, coming back home, you still miss Nigeria because there is no place like having your people around you. But then I keep asking, what exactly does it cost us to create that?
in this edition of the Mike On Podcast.
Abdul Abiola, one of the sons of the late Chief Moshood Kashimawo Olawale Abiola, is the guest on today's Mike On Podcast. Chief MKO Abiola is the acclaimed winner of the June 12, 1983 presidential election, widely regarded as the freest and fairest election in Nigeria's electoral history. The host, Seun Okinbaloi, engages Abdul in a compelling conversation, getting him to open up on a number of issues surrounding the legacy of the late politician and the pivotal 1993 presidential election that was annulled. Abdul reflects on the enduring impact of his father's vision and manifestos for Nigerians, the historical and political significance of the June 12 annulled election, and theories surrounding the death of his parent. Join the conversation today on the Mike On Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of the Mike On Podcast. I'm Seun Okinbaloi, your host. Of course, you know, this is an independent platform where it allows young Nigerians to be able to express their opinions on topical and critical issues to our national development. This is independent of my weekly and weekend show on China's television, Sunday Politics and Politics Today. On this edition of the Mike On Podcast, I will be speaking with one of those who bear the name that perhaps it's so much on the lips and the minds of a lot of Nigerians. When you talk about June 12, MKO Abiola was one man that was said to have won the election, referred to as perhaps the fairest election in Nigeria's electoral history. Abdul Abiola joins us live in our studio. Thank you so much, Abdul, for joining us today.
Hey, boy, thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. How does it feel every June 12? And I remember doing a story about you some years back. I showed you the video of you were taped without, unconsciously, you were not even conscious that you were being taped. You were coming out and you were not even aware of what was going on around you. Your dad in the green agbada, and he was holding your hand, and you were holding your football and not knowing what was going on. Every June 12, what comes to your mind?
Every June 12 is a humbling experience for me. You know, you have to understand that, I was very young when this whole thing had happened in 1993, but I actually had an idea of what exactly was going on. You know, you can sense the emotions in the atmosphere. There was a lot of anxiety. There was a lot of excitement. So I was just happy to just be around my father. You know, he was a very busy man. You didn't really get to see him all the time. So when I did, I was just always excited to be around him. So I did understand. But when every June 12 comes about, I think it's just a time where the nation can actually reflect on where we are and where we need to be. I think it's important that we have these moments in a country's history where we can actually take a glance backwards, not necessarily to focus on it, but just to recollect the situation at hand and then try to forge forward. So for me, it's humbling because this is a day that my father, and that represents something that is even beyond my father. I consider the day like the birth of a nation that was truncated. So there was so much emotion, so many things that had happened after the annulment that I think might have harmed the Nigerian psyche, and we're still suffering from that tragic decision by the former General Babangida.
I know how tough that could be. You lost your mom at some point. You were of Kudirat Abiola,
yes,
isn't it? That's another sad, and I understand at that time that in the death of your father, and when the problem, when he was apprehended or arrested by the military junta, that destabilized pretty much the family's life. How bad were things? What really happened when your father died? I mean, or when he was even apprehended?
Well, like, you have to understand that at that time, with so much anxiety, so much excitement to hear everything go down that way, and then my father being arrested. I was mostly shocked, I think. And then 2-3 years after my father's arrest, my mom was shot down on the streets of Lagos State. I remember that vividly because I left for school. I was at Avicenna International School in Adeni Jones in Ikeja. And we normally get out of school by 2 o'clock, and normally the driver is waiting at 1:30. But on this day, 2 o'clock, no driver, 3 o'clock, no driver. And about 4:30, my stepmom comes to pick me up. And I actually knew that something was going to happen. I think I have said this a couple of times over the years, that day I didn't want to go to school. For some reason, I knew something was going to happen to my mother.
A premonition of some sort.
Yeah, like some kind of foresight. And I knew something was going to happen. And it wasn't that I didn't want to go to school. I didn't want to do anything. I wanted to follow her. I knew something was going to happen to her. And I wished that I was able to be in that car with her, because maybe the assassins had seen a baby in the car, maybe they might not have taken that action. God knows what could have happened. But I wasn't able to, because I wasn't really the most studious student. I knew my father had money. So I used to always tell all the teachers that, why are you disturbing me? Like, we have money. Teach the other students, like, I'm okay, And my mom knew that, and she wanted me to understand that education was really, really important. So me saying I didn't want to go to school, she just said, he doesn't like school, because she just assumed I didn't like school. And she forced me to go. And I can remember I was crying when I left. And that was the last time I saw her. So it was kind of sad. And it was even worse because it was me and my younger brother that were in the country at the time. When we go back to the house, Muslim, traditional Muslim thing, if you die before the sun goes down, you're buried right away. So we didn't even get any time to like...
So you didn't sight your mom's corpse before?
She was already wrapped by the time I got home.
What about your dad when he died too? Same thing?
I wasn't in the country. I was in the United States. I didn't even know he had died until 2-3 months later, because I think my sisters thought that it would be so shocking, because the first thing we had heard was Abacha had died, and we were now expecting my father to be released. So I was just waiting to hear from my sister to tell me that, daddy's has been released and we're going back to Nigeria. But she didn't say anything, and 2-3 months goes by, and I'm like, Hafsa, what's going on? I thought daddy was coming, and she now told me. But I think she just was trying to protect me or protect us, because we were really young still at the time from that kind of trauma. But
so
yeah.
Hafsa took you in?
Yeah.
And took you abroad when your mom died?
Okay, yeah, so once my mom was killed, we got word that the soldiers were actually looking for the 2 children that Kudi had, wondering what they were looking for us for. So we had gone to my mom's younger sister's house, and we were there. And when this information came about, my uncle, Senator Bayo Shinowo, may Allah rest his soul, got in contact with my sisters, and then they sent for me and my younger brother. We couldn't go through the Nigerian airport because, like I said, they were looking for us. So what we now had
for
to do,
what purpose?
I can't tell you. You might have to ask them. I can't really understand why they were looking for us, but whatever the case is, they were. So Senator Bayo Shinowo, again, God rest his soul, he drove us. He put us in the car. He had a lady in the front seat, and he kept on. So there were checkpoints every couple. We had to go through Cotonou actually. So there were checkpoints, and he kept on saying that we're his children. They're just we're going to Cotonou, that kind of thing. And we got into Cotonou. He takes us to the airport, and there were tickets waiting for us. It was an Air France flight. I think I was about 12 years old or maybe 11, and it was me and my younger brother. And they put us on the plane. We head to France, and he gives me, I think, $1,000 to give to my sister when I get to America. I get to France, and I see like McDonald's, I see an arcade, and we spent all the money there anyway. So I spent the whole money there, and then we catch the second flight to the United States. Luckily enough, when we get to America, my brother Lekon, Hafsa, Jamu, Kafila, Maram, we're 7 from my mom. They were all living in America at the time, and we were all together, so they came to meet us at the airport. I think that was the first time me and my brothers actually really felt like we started crying, because it was so emotional. I'm seeing my people that I recognize, I grew up with, and we helped. I think we just came together. We made each other strong. We leaned on each other, and then from the airport we went to the White House, because at that time we were basically refugees. We were on asylum. We couldn't go back to Nigeria for obvious reasons. So we went to the White House, and the State Department got us a place in Maryland, apparently where they keep all the refugees or asylum seekers. And that's where we were. Yeah, but we basically, it wasn't easy, because you have to understand, my oldest brother was about 21 at the time. He didn't know where any of the companies or any of the what the businesses were saying. He was still in college. Hafsa was 19. She was just in Harvard, just about to graduate. So she had to stop Harvard just to come and take care of us. And then, you know, we started school. It was kind of, it was
tough.
Yeah, but then, you know, you have to put it into context, because for me, saying something is tough, I was used to, like, the best of everything. So obviously it'll be tough. But then for somebody who never, what would you say? So I can't really say it was tough. I would say it was challenging, and it was a growing experience. That's what I can say.
I mean, it looked like hopes dashed because, I mean, being born or being of a father that perhaps the richest man in Africa, and, I mean, carrying that name was more of a pride for you when you were growing up, but all of a sudden, things changed dramatically for you.
No, having that name has always been a pride. It was never about the money, really. I think it's always been a pride. And another thing I would want to say is that the actions he took with knowing the kind of person he was, being the richest in Nigeria, for him to take that action shows the conviction in his drive and his dream for the country. I'm even proud. I'm even way prouder of him now, after the fact, and his stance during that period. You know, I don't know if how I would have seen my father if, you know, all the opportunities he had to denounce the mandate and leave Nigerian people basically, you know, to the wind, you know, throw them out, and, you know, like he's like throwing the baby in the bathwater. You know, my father understood that it wasn't him that won the election. The Nigerian people vested their trust in him. It's a totally different thing. He didn't pay for any of these votes. He sent a message, and that message was what resonated with the Nigerian people.
Now, those who will say Abdul speaks like his father. You know, the usual MKO Abiola, the stammering, the manner in which you punch your words and all that, even the looks. Well, you know, sometimes you reminisce on that, don't you?
Well, you know, like seriously, I don't know how I want to put it. You have to understand that me growing up as such a man as a father, I idolized him. And I think every child at a certain age will always idolize their parents. Then when you get older, you start to see the flaws. I never got the chance to see the flaws in my father. So for me, my father was always going to be perfect. That's number one. Number two, when I was born, you know, my father came down from England to see me at the hospital. And, you know, it was, I think, Omota Hospital in Ikeja. And they had like a bunch of babies in the room. And then, you know, the nurses say, "Oh, yeah, Daddy, you want Imbi?" Then my father looks around and goes, "Oh, mommy, Ray." You know, so you can get that. He so, and then after that day, he did blood tests for almost all the children he didn't think was his. So you can see that and for me, my only dream was to be just like that.
What exactly would you say were the traits that you picked from him? The things that let's say some of you are carbon copy of MKO.
Okay, humility. My father was so humble. I have never seen anything like this before. The same way he spoke to the gatesman was the same way he spoke to Babangida. There was no difference. You know, he gave everybody the respect they deserved. And I think, you know, we in this country we look at wealth as like a rubric cube, or like a scale to judge who is worthy and who's not. We don't know that. Nobody knows that. Like, my father was one of the poorest when he was born, and I'm sure those stories are out there where he said he didn't eat egg before he met Simbi. So he was dirt poor, became the richest. How many Abiolas have been left to their own devices? You know, it's sad what has happened to the Nigerian people. But like I said, you know, I for one, he was so humble. He remembered where he came from. You know, most Nigerians, or most people in general, let's not generalize it to Nigerians, they're poor and they become rich, and then they leave Ikeja, move to Ikoyi. They don't want to see any of their friends anymore. My father wasn't like that. He said, "Look, what am I going to go and do in Ikoyi? That's Omiye." You know, he was saying that the water will come and reclaim all the land. You know, so when I came back in 2007, you know, I had to go to the house in Ikeja, and I was wondering. I was asking people, "Has the water reclaimed the land?" And they said, "No." I was like, "Oh my God!" I would have loved to probably be in that angle, but I understood his drive. You know, like, for me, every part of Nigeria is a wonderful place. You can't just segregate areas and say this is for the wealthy and this is for the poor.
But physically speaking, if you look at your father in the picture and you look at yourself, what semblance do you think you pick for him? Physical trait now?
Well, the only thing I think is maybe my smile. I think I have this one smile that is like all my teeth.
What about his facial structure? No, what about the ears?
You know, when he was younger, when he was in school, I saw a picture that, you know, I can now see what people will see in. But, you know, like with all his children, you always find something. But then there's something that you will know an Abiola with, and it's the ears. But I don't want to bring too much attention to my ears. So everybody out there, don't look at my ears right now. But the issue, I think it's with Abiola. I read a lot about him. I talked to some of his friends that he had just to get a better picture of who he was as an individual, just to learn about the person that that is my father and the person that I idolize so much. Because I believe that what my father's promises is left to me or his siblings or his children to fulfill them, and that's what I'm trying to do.
I mean, how has it been carrying the legacy forward? And I know that the family has their own bad times and some of the struggles within the family. A lot of people who thought that the MKO's wealth and all of that probably not being properly managed. Do you have those kind of regrets and kind of pains that the former, I mean, the one foremost person and the richest person in Nigeria, that legacy is not being pushed as exactly the way it was?
Yeah, it's a total shame, actually. It's a total shame. It's not necessarily only a shame for the Abiola family, but for the Nigerian people itself. There were monies invested in some of these businesses that we're talking about. There were Nigerian people employed in most of these. I think we were the highest employers of Nigerian labor. It's sad that, we were not able to maintain that dynasty, even if it was not to the 100% magnitude that my father did, but we can still try to do a 50% or even 10%. It's something. Something but now we're not doing anything. We can't even help the nation at this kind of trying time. Like even the president even acknowledged the economic difficulties. It would be nice for the Abiola family to be able to engage with the Nigerian people and see how we could elevate some of these pressures. But like I said, most of these things is a lack of leadership, and I think we've seen when the leadership is not willing to just have that conversation. You have to know. Like for me, I always say that if I have any kind of health issue, I have to first of all know what history I have before I can start solving it. So for me, what I've tried to do in my little way was I first tried to reach out to my older brother, Abiola, and trying to reach out to him just to figure out exactly what the issues were around why most of all these companies are not being functional. For instance, we had Concord newspapers. That was huge. We had Abiola farms, about 45,000 hectares of farmland across the country. We had RCN, Abiola Bookshop. There were so many of these properties that were employing Nigerian people, and I wanted to understand what the issues were. At the beginning, he said that the military government had shut down some of these properties, but then in 1999, we went back into democratic rule, and I'm sure if he had approached some of my father's friends at the time, they would have wanted to support him into bringing these things back to life. And not necessarily because I want to have money to go to Dubai, but because there's a Nigerian person there who had a job, who was taking care of his family, and you firing that person, you're basically taking about like a group of people out of the, you're putting them in a bad situation. So I was very worried about that. So what I did, after I tried talking to him a couple of times and I wasn't getting a positive response or a response that even would encourage me to even do more, I decided to now do it on my own. So well, not necessarily on my own, I reached out to some of my siblings. The Abiola family, we're not that much, because people are thinking that we're a lot. We're only 55.
Really?
Yeah,
Out of how many wives?
Well, there were 40 wives, according to in the will, but I think about 40-something, though. So there were some wives that were not there at the end, within the beginning, but not at the end. But there were 40 wives. Most of the wives had maybe one or two for my dad, not every one of them. So when my father was alive, he was paying for 103 children to go to school. But like I said, not all of them were. So after the blood test, we happened to be 55. Which is actually a manageable number if we're in a country of 220 million people. You would think my father was enjoying himself, but apparently he wasn't enjoying himself that much, because there were only 55 children, with all the time he had. So for me, I reached out to them. Some of them were really young. Most of them were really young at the time as well. But now we're all adults, so we reached out. We tried to synergize. When we took over Concord newspaper, the Concord premises. I renovated it, obviously with their support. Once it was renovated, we got it, released it out to certain businesses just so that we could generate funds. The idea wasn't to just do Concord, it was to do it one step at a time. Like you have a big cake, you don't eat the cake all at once, you cut it into slices, right? So I was thinking, let's do the Concord, let me show my capacity, let me show what I'm able to do, and let me also show that I'm a good accountant of what you've entrusted in me. So when we get money from this property, I split it with all the siblings, and this is the only way it can work. And I think my father made that clear in the will. He stated it. He said, okay, after he had given all the wives their money and what was rightfully theirs, he said everything else should be sold and shared equally amongst all my children. I don't really believe my father wanted to sell it, but he wanted us to come together as a one unit. But for some reason, we've still not been able to like synergize, especially with the first family. And I'm having
that's Simbi's children.
Simbi's.
And which Kola is the first child.
First.
I mean, are you in a good relationship with Kola?
Well, I don't think we're really in that. The last time I saw him, he said, and I will quote his words, "Do I want to do fire for fire?" And I asked him, "Tabashi fire for fire, Shema John," because that was all that. Because the idea is not about look. The whole Nigeria is in fire. He asked me if I want to do fire for fire. If the idea is that I'm already in fire, so let's do it as long as there will be something, proceeds will come out that I will be able to take care of my family and people who just need help in general. So yeah, we're not in good terms, and it's sad for me to say that. You know, I don't want to have an issue with my older brother. He's my older brother. I love him. You know, I mean, I hope he loves me, but I have no ill will. I'm just saying that this is our collective responsibility. And if you're not doing your part, then you should just step aside. It's very simple.
I mean, do you blame him for the manner in which things have gone? Do you think that the legacy of the MKO Abiola would have been properly sustained better than it is right now?
Yeah, I definitely do, because he was in a pivotal position, especially after the whole crisis. He could have been a voice. He could have been a strong voice of true democratic values. He could have. He chose not to. Apparently, at the time, my father was still in jail. He was having relations with Babagida's daughter for Christ. I don't want to. You know, it's just sad. You know, I actually even was a little bit pleased that my father didn't get to come out and see what his first son had turned out to become.
So you are unhappy with him?
I am unhappy. I think Nigerian people are unhappy. You saw how many people voted for him when he said he wanted to be president. I wonder how he thought he could be president. You cannot manage Abiola empire. How do you want to manage Nigeria? How does that work? This is the problem in Nigeria. People are not showing capacity in their own little fair spaces of work, and they want to now get a higher position. You don't deserve a higher position.
So you didn't vote for your brother?
I told him. I said, "You're not going to use my money to do campaign. Give me my money first, then go and campaign."
Do you think he owes you anything?
He owes me a lot. Well, first of all, if he just listens to what my father said in the will and does what he's rightfully supposed to do, like every other person has done, he's not the first to be the first son of a. We have the Falawiyos as an example. These people, I think, we have lost so much. There's so much property that my father had in this country that we can never get back, because people have sat on it and they're using it to take care of their families. But the issue here is, who is to lose? Is our money that was used to buy these things. Those properties now, you cannot build them today with the kind of money you're going to spend. I'm talking about the silo in Kwara State, Lafiagi, 20,000 metric ton silo with 10,000 hectares of land. How much do you want to pay for that land now? You know, it's sad that, you know, your father has reached a certain level and you cannot continue from where you stopped. I would like him to explain to me where exactly he has gone with this direction. It's like you're going down a dead-end road and you are seeing the signs and you still keep going. I don't understand this. And this is 30 years down the line. So it's not like I waited a year after my father died and I'm making these accusations. I'm saying people have died in this 30 years. I'm talking Abiola children who could not do or buy medicine just to take care of themselves. This is sad. And I'm sure my father will not be pleased about it. So I am not pleased. And it's not because, like I said, it's not because I want. It's like I wake up in the morning and my phone is inundated with text messages of people saying, I need help, I need help. How many people can I help? And if I want to help somebody, I have to first be able to help myself. It's important that we do things the right way. And I think that's just my issue on this.
Have you been able to speak to Kola Abiola about some of these grievances that you have, especially because there are those who believe that MK Abiola's wealth would have been a generational wealth because he had so much wealth and spread across the country, such that there are those who believe that no Abiola blood should ever be poor based on what Abiola had.
You're certainly right. And you have to understand that what I'm talking about are just the properties in Nigeria. This is not where Abiola had his real wealth. Abiola had those companies in Nigeria just to help Nigerian people. They were losing money, they were bleeding money, but he did this because he understood that Nigerian people needed something to do. Give somebody nothing to do and they'll pick up a gun. You need something to do. So he understood that. What I'm just telling you right now is very simple. You see, Abiola's wealth was from outside this country. Abiola did not do anything outside. He was an intelligent accountant. When he was ITT, was the state director of ITT or something like this. There was monies that were being owed their company. When he was able to retrieve the money from that military government, I think it was under Murtala at the time, he went back to his masters in the West. I think it was England. When he got there, he said, "Oh, this is the check that your money you've been owing." And then they were now going to offer him like a commission. He said, "No, give me shares." So my father has shares. So I told Barakola when I go back to Nigeria, I said, the monies that are outside the country, I don't want to disturb you with that one. That is for you. Eat it, die. Eat it, do whatever you want. That's your business. But the ones that are in Nigeria, we will die there.
Have you been able to take that up? Some of the properties and some of the businesses?
Like I said, we took over Concord. That has been, at the time we took it over, he went ballistic. He took me to the KBC Akinolu's palace to tell me why I should leave the place. I'll even give you a funny story. The day I went to that Concord, this would have been maybe 18 years had passed. I'd been in Nigeria. I'd been working in Osun State at that time with Ogbeni Rafa Regoshola. Thank God for that, for him. Because if not for him, I wouldn't probably have had the courage to do what I did. It was the second term. I was on my way to Oshogbo, and I just kept on thinking, because I had 2 kids, young kids at the time, and I had to go to Oshogbo. I stayed 3 months, then I'll be relieved, somebody else will come, then I'll come back home. That was not a way to have a young family. But anyway, I was doing it. And on the way there, I was just thinking that if anything happened to me on this road, now what would I say? But we had properties in Ikeja, right by the airport. We had properties in Oshodi. We have properties, and these properties are not just property. These are billions of naira, today's money. So I am maybe.
Are they still there now?
Concord is still there. These properties were put under Abiola's name. You can't sell something that is not your name. So the idea for Daddy, and I think that was his idea, was that if we all don't come together and decide to sell something, nothing can be done. But what Barakola, I think, was doing things in our absence, and now that we're all old enough, and if I enter the property, those that he had maybe done these shady deals with will now be attacking it. Will be going to meet him. He's now attacking me. I wasn't there when you made those agreements, and I'm not in any way.
But you had Jamiu is your brother.
Yeah.
Afsat is your sister.
Yeah.
They are older, and they're perhaps closer in age to Kola. All of these grievances, have they taken it up with him?
Well, I realized something once I grow older. When I told you I was real young when this happened. Apparently, maybe there was some kind of politics happening within the family that I wasn't aware of, or maybe I was too young to understand what was happening. Because me and going to America is a kind of place where you speak your mind, and it's a freedom of speech kind of thing. So I learned to be open. So I understand. I think for them, they're just a little bit still traumatized by the whole event. You have to understand that. Me, I lost my father when I was only about like 11 or 10. They saw my dad throughout, so they had a more intense relationship with him. It was a little bit harder for them to come to terms with his loss. Me, younger, how we say kids are Brazilian, they can just, they move on really quick. So I guess I was lucky in that sense. But I know that they're also not pleased with the situation, and they're also working with me towards getting us back on track.
You look at what is going on right now and celebrating democracy, and your father's name is always being drawn to it, and the past president, Muhammadu Buhari, had honored your father. Some family members were there, and the June 12 has now been declared officially the Democracy Day in Nigeria. What are some key aspects of the MK Abiola's manifesto that continue to inspire you and your siblings?
Well, it was, I think, the key aspect is farewell to poverty, and I see poverty everywhere I look in the country. So that was the key aspect. It was an inclusive manifesto. It was something that was well developed. It wasn't my father's ideas alone. He reached out to professors across board. I'm talking globally and in Nigeria to come up with plans and systems that would see us through. For me, the only thing that encourages me when I hear about this June 12 is it reminds us of those that actually really believe in the future of this country. There are some of us who say they do, but they don't, and we can see it in their actions. And that's how you know. Somebody's actions will tell you exactly who they are. My father was just a Nigerian and a patriot, and you knew that from his actions. First, there was for me, I don't have any ill will. I just hope that in the recognition of this day, and lets us understand that it's not about Abiola. Abiola is gone. He's not even going to enjoy any of these things we're talking about. but it was about the message. The message is not.
But what the message seems to still resonate now. When you see those messages, and it looks like he's talking, and that manifesto, farewell to poverty, and if you take about 7 or 8 items there, those things still look as though they were our present situation right now.
That's because we are not really practicing the true concept of democracy. Democracy is about inclusion. If you have looked at the elections that we've had, we've been reducing the amount of people who are actually open to going out to vote. It's now basically turned into a party affair. This is the issue. You see, Abiola did not do any magic. It was very simple. He had a message, and people understood that message. The people were the ones that were going to do the work. Abiola is not going to come and fix your road. But once you believe in the vision, you would work towards that. You will work towards getting the right people to do those jobs. So I understand why people are finding this a little bit frustrating, because first of all, I won't lie, I have an issue with the Constitution and the way we came about it. I think that there's certain things that we need to study, or we need to rejig in order to get to that promised land. It's like, for me, we are using a system handed down by those who wanted to oppress us. The people who became most of the leaders of the 1993 elections were those same people who said that they were going to kill Abiola. I don't understand how David Mark became the Senate president and we're saying we're in a democracy. Or Abdul Salam can come and talk about, he's talking about peaceful elections. What does he not understand about peaceful elections? He gave us a contraption for a constitution, and he knows what he handed to us. I don't even know if he even read it. I think it was handed to him by his masters. This is a disaster, and this is one of the issues. If we are not really careful, Nigeria would implode. We're not listening to our own people. The Southeast people, they're agitating for something. The Northerners are agitating for something. Everybody is saying something, and we're just saying, let's keep moving. No, we need to address, and that's what democracy does. It's about having people to express themselves in a civil manner, not in an aggressive manner. But we're having a discussion here. So I would have hoped to hear that maybe Mr. President talking about a drastic overhaul of that constitution to really fit the picture or the vision or the future of this country. Because as I'm looking at it now, we're talking about local government autonomy. The constitution itself is silent on this. We need something that it spells out everything. Nigerian people need to understand what is expected of them, and you can't blame the Nigerian people, because every politician comes out, they promise, and they never fulfill. If you do that, what you do is you're eroding the trust of the people. After a while, they will just not come out anymore. So who are you rigging for?
What kind of legacy does the Abiola personality lay for our democracy in Nigeria?
Well, look, Abiola, I think what my father was trying to get across was, and I think he said this clearly, that you can't shave his head in his absence. Most of these leaders today are trying to rewrite history. They're making it seem like they're the heroes of this democracy, yet they don't have one democratic bone in their body. They really could care if the Nigerian people are dying or they're alive. As far as they're concerned, as long as their family are okay. And I think that's what Abiola stood for. Like you said, he was the richest. He has shown these elite that did not even believe Abiola was an elite, of his actions. An elite would probably have gone to Ikoyi somewhere, locked himself up under with a lot of protection, not want to even help in Nigeria. There are billionaires today. There are millions of them in Nigeria. Billionaires, they don't help anybody. If each of them were to just help one person, we will not be where we are today. Or if they were to even just create a company and employ people, we will not be here today. So what I'm just suggesting to me is like Abiola's legacy is just one of patriotism. He was a nationalist. He was somebody who believed in the whole of Nigeria. He didn't just look at Nigeria as something to take and go and leave, because this belongs to all of us. It's our collective responsibility to make it right.
You've once voiced your opinion about the kind of choice that Nigeria, or the kind of candidate that the APC needed at the presidential. You were looking at a younger person, but President Tinubu emerged as the presidential candidate, then Nigeria's president. How do you assess the president's last 1 year in office, vis-a-vis the fact that it was speaking so much about the legacy of the June 12? How do you assess, what are your thoughts about the Tinubu's presidency?
No, it's really sad that it took 30 years for someone like Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu to be allowed to rule this country. I think he was somebody who, like you said, was a pro-democratic leader. So he's like the true democratic president we've ever had. But what I would like to also say is that when we want to assess a president's performance, we have to look beyond his tenure. And we all know what had happened in this government during the previous administration and some of the situations that we found ourselves in. I think that whoever took over from Asiwaju from Buhari would have had a challenging time. I have really no issues with some of the policies. I just maybe might be questioning the timing, or just I might have an issue with how the information was sent to the Nigerian people. I think there's a way policy should be done, and the way it is by, first of all, you sensitize the people before it's done, so you give them some time to adjust to that new program. For doing so, especially in the kind of climate we're in this African country and this around the world, drastic or sharp decisions and that are done immediately are only going to exacerbate the issues. So I think it's important that when we want to have a decision, and I think this is just in anything you do, before I even want to do anything, you should have a think group or a critical team of people that you told the idea to. Let them give you their opinions before you roll it out to the national public. I think this is some of the issues that we're facing. So it's not like the Nigerian people are not willing to key into this government's agenda, but it's just that they just don't know. They're not informed about it. And if I'm not informed about something, then it comes as a shock. And Nigerian people, not Nigerian people, just people in general, don't like sharp changes.
So you don't think that the Tinubu government is meeting the plight or reaching their meeting their aspiration?
Trying to address the issues, but they might be addressing the issue and not looking at the consequences from this from the effects of some of these policies they're putting together. For instance, I'll give you an example. We're having this conversation about minimum wage today. No matter what the president says the minimum wage is going to be, it's not going to help the Nigerian people, because what is going to happen indirectly is prices are just going to go up to meet that increase. So you're going to be in the same place, just with more money. What I would have expected the president to have said, maybe during the June 12 Democracy Day, would have maybe some measures to just reduce the heat in the policy. Like maybe we can talk about addressing or phasing the electricity tariff increase, phasing that, or let's peg the petrol cost at the same. Now that we know we're paying subsidy, and from the minister for
the government is saying that we're not paying.
Well, what part of the government are you listening to? Because I heard from the Minister for Finance, the coordinating minister of the economy, saying that he paid exactly, I think, about 3.23 trillion on subsidy. What exactly? Then they need to clarify. And that's what I'm talking about, messaging. If something is happening, we need to know exactly what is happening. I've heard so many statements like this over time where they'll say something is about to happen, and then 2 seconds later it's debunked.
Right.
These things are not good for the image of the government, and it's also not. It also erodes the people's trust in the government. So we need to start to address this issue.
Would you like to run for a political office?
I do intend to run for a political office. I don't think there's any other way I can try to, make meaningful change from outside the door. If I'm outside your house and I'm just yelling, it's basically, if you don't open the window, you probably won't hear me.
From Lagos or Ogun State?
Ogun State. That's where my father's from.
As a governor or as what?
Well, it depends. As far as I'm concerned, my first priority is to offer myself for service, and then I'm in discussions with the leader of our party in the state, which is Chief Oshoba. I'm just trying to see where I can fit in. I don't see myself as, like I said, even before positions, you can be a leader. So I don't see that. There's this is the position that will make, no. Any position that I can be called to serve, I would lend my time and service. I would be willing to.
General Babangida justified the annulment of the election that brought where your father won that election in 1993, and he says that the annulment was done to avert violent coup, and that there were going to be a lot of to find out how the. But what can you say about that?
Well, first of all, it's very funny because I think I saw that when he was trying to where he was trying to give blame to, he said some Yoruba leaders, some military leaders could not stand the thought of Abiola, something like this. And he also even said that he couldn't die for the country. So I would take that general away from his name and just call him Ibrahim. Because as a general, if you cannot die for your country, then I don't see how, is he a common civilian that will die for his country? So that message, I think, was maybe misquoted when he said that. Because I think he had made allusions to the fact that when they had come to him like this, and then he said that he could never say no to Abacha. Seriously, for me, I think it's just sad at that statement, and being and he was a very close friend of my father, so it's kind of sad for him to say that he couldn't.
How close were they?
Well, they're actually very, very close. My father, Babangida is my friend. Even when they were taking him to jail, he was still saying that. Like, what? Abiola is a very funny man. But I'm sure now, even to today, even in heaven, what he's saying is that it's true. He's my friend. but
as your family forgiving IBB?
Well, look, you see, like I said, Allah gives and Allah takes. You see, this is Abiola that died almost 20-something years ago. We're still talking about this man. People die yesterday and they're forgotten the next day. This man has done his part. This is how the deeds that he did, what he accomplished while he was alive, even for that short span. People will be 100 years and will not even do an ounce of it. So, alhamdulillah, Abiola did what he did, and he's now with Allah. And then everybody would also have to answer for their own decisions.
Is there anyone that your family or yourself blame for your father's death?
Well, you see, I want to see my father was a very complicated man. This man was not only looking to be president of Nigeria, he was also actively cultivating presidencies in other African countries. He had written a book on reparations. So he was actually thinking that, look, once he became president, he was going to have the AU, the African Union as a whole, or just African countries as a whole, requesting from the West what was rightfully theirs. My father had a statement. He's saying that, the West are very funny. They want us to run, but they've cut our legs. How do you expect me to run if my legs are cut? So my father, so I'm sure that there were some village heads who were in Africa who were part of the conspiracy, but this thing was mostly an international affair. Abiola was moving and he was making comments that would have maybe changed the global dynamics. And you saw the same situation happen when was it Gaddafi who was requesting to do some certain things as well. So you have these decisions or these situations happen when we have African leaders who want to think, who think that they can think, or who think that they know something, and then so the West will always clamp down on us. So I don't know if I can actually look at one person. I can just say that this was like a team of people who worked against Abiola because they were afraid that maybe where they're eating from would stop. He had said he was going to announce the daily barrels of oil. These are kind of agreements that were made before his time. So so I get how.
So you think that there are people, not only one person, responsible
there are three forces that were against Abiola, and they were also okay with Abacha being president at that time. Mm-hmm. You have to understand that Abiola did go to America. Remember, the famous no passport was still allowed to enter the country. He was the only man to enter America without a passport. He went to meet Clinton. So I'm sure Clinton would have just been looking at him like, this guy wants to bring democracy to Africa. No, democracy is only good in America. And this is how the Americans think. Democracy is only good for them. They will be there, they will impose dictatorships across the world, and yet they want to say that they're the democratic force. It's a sham. And that's why, since I go back to Nigeria, I have not returned to the United States. And I don't intend to. I know that they're fake. It's more for show. We can see what's happening in Gaza. People are dying left and right, and nobody cares. And they keep supplying weapons. So once we start to understand that these parties, and I think my father's made it clear that what do IMF know about Nigeria? Some of these policies that our president is implementing, this is the World Bank and IMF's hands. They read it over. You can see their hands. They're saying that electricity tariff should be removed fully. So this 225 is not enough suffering. They want it to be like maybe 10,000. Maybe then they'll be happy.
The radio about your mother's death, Kudirat Abiola's death, it's not solved yet. Are you puzzled by that?
Yeah, it just sends the wrong message that people can do criminal. This is and it was really bad. You can't use weapons bought by Nigerian people to kill a Nigerian. How does that work? We pay for those weapons, and yet you're using those weapons against your own citizens. It doesn't work this way. But like I said, what my mom was doing was also making a lot of problems for the military government. And military government, they only know go come. They don't know stop. They just go come. That's it. So she was making them look bad internationally. It's bad enough that they don't have any credibility in the country and that they have to use force to get people to do what they want. But now, even when they go out of the country, they're saying, people are asking them these questions. Obviously, a dictator wouldn't want someone to be asking them, probing questions. You're a dictator. You have a gun. You just shoot the person, So I guess that's what they saw. They said, that, look, this lady keeps talking. And they threatened her a couple of times. They locked her up a couple of times. I remember coming back home. Where's mom? They would lie to me that she went for a meeting. But I knew she was in jail. They locked her up maybe 2-3 times. They threatened her life. They even offered her, all blocks. They said they'll give you all blocks. Just leave Abiola alone. Let Abiola do it. But she didn't do that. And I'm proud of her as well. I hope maybe if anything were to happen to me, my wife would do the same. But in the Nigeria of today, I'm sure she would take the all block. I'm sure she might take the all block. So I'm happy that my mom was able to stand.
But the fact that death, they killed her, has not been resolved. How do you feel about that?
The whole process, we had the Oputa panel where people are admitted to their roles in this thing. We had the Lagos State take it up during Tinubu's time as governor, where they arrested Abdul Salam. It was further released. Like I said, Allah takes, Allah gives, and Allah takes. I for one, I'm obviously disappointed, and the reason I'm actually disappointed is not necessarily because they've not been in jail, because like I said, Allah takes and Allah gives. But I'm upset that this might send a message to somebody else that we're going to kill somebody else, because they'll be like, well, if he could get off with it, maybe I will get off with it too. So we need to create that deterrent. It's not because I'm not going to get my mother back. She's not ever going to come back. So I'm never even going to ever get a full closure. But the bottom line is we don't want this to happen again, and that's the issue. When we have laws, we should follow those laws. I can't imagine having a law and then you have the law, but you don't use it, and then you wonder why things are going array. If you see injustice somewhere is injustice everywhere. This is a big injustice that needs to be addressed. After they released Abdul Salam, the family, my mother's side of the family, we would be kind of distraught, we were upset. He was working for the state government. We've taken the states to court, ECOWAS courts. We've taken them to court. If they're not going to pay with maybe somebody in jail, then they should pay financially, because a woman's life was taken, and she was only 44. So and the only reason why we're even doing that is so that somebody should be held accountable. Somebody, at least something. There should be some kind of value to this. So
you're still willing to push for a closure on your mother's death?
It's not about willing. I don't have a choice. I can't sit back and just let it go like that. No, I'm trying to make a case that, look, no matter how long it takes, as long as I'm still breathing, we're going to look for a solution. We're going to at least try to bring it, and we'll keep talking about it. And those that did this thing, they should also know that their own day is going to come. Their own day will come. But like I said, I would suggest that maybe they should try to give back or do something to maybe mitigate some of these things, because I think it was a disaster. Because what they did is not only to rob me, they robbed me of a mother. There's so much I would love to ask my mother now, I can't. But that's not even the case. My mother was also she was taking care of two of my father's kids that that were in the house. When she was killed, I left for America. Those two kids were left on the streets. If you see them now, you wouldn't even believe they were Abiolas. It was the amount of pain and anguish that they have caused cannot just go scot-free. And I will do all I can or in my power to make sure that I won't do anything illegal, but I'll make sure that I go through all the legal ways towards getting them to account for this. Or I'll just keep saying it out there so people know who they are. I know these people. We see they will put up on. People should do their research. They will see them. They say it with their own mouths. I think Abacha's son was involved. He was released because apparently they have billions somewhere that was stolen from the Nigerian people. These are some of the things that I don't understand. Somebody stole your money. You know they stole it, and you let them walk around. And even Nigerian people are even praising them. For what? You slap the guy and collect your money from him. Anyway, let's not be violent.
Thank you so much, Abdul Abiola. Thank you so much indeed. I wish you and your family well. It's a pleasure having you talk to us, speak your mind. Perhaps, I'm not sure you've had opportunity to air your views about what happened to you, your sibling, and your family in this manner.
Yeah.
Sometimes therapy This some of therapy, isn't it?
And I didn't have to pay for it, so, so it's good.
You don't have to pay for it. Thank you so much. Abdul MKO Abiola, if it's right to call you that.
It's okay. It's my father now, and I'm his son, so yeah.
Thank you so much indeed. It's a pleasure talking to you. Abdul MKO Abiola, son of the late MKO Abiola. And that's our podcast today. Thank you everyone for watching. I'm Sean Kimale. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us on this edition of Mike On Podcast with Shayon Okimbaloi. Mike On Podcast for the independent mind.